Welcome back to FoodCrafts. Today, we're making a sweet and spicy, sticky and tender, braised short rib. This is a beginner-friendly recipe. There's no complex technique, no uncommon ingredients, and no fancy kitchen gadgets. All you need is your stove and oven. If you follow this recipe, I guarantee you're going to get short ribs that look like this. Before we get started, which is preparing our braising liquid, let's talk about the star of the show, the short rib. From my experience, most supermarkets with a meat section won't have bone-in short ribs like this. So I highly recommend going to your local butcher. Ideally, they've already been cut into 3 to 4 inch segments like this, which is also known as an English cut. We're looking for good marbling and as much fat as we can get so our short ribs hold up during the braising process. Additionally, if you have an excess amount of fat or silver skin on top of your short ribs, make sure to trim that off or you'll have an unpleasant time chewing fat and connective tissue. With that out of the way, it's time to prepare our braising liquid. First, in a large bowl, pour in 4 cups of beef stock along with 4 cloves of grated garlic, 2 tablespoons or 2 inches of peeled grated ginger, the juice of a whole lime, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and finally 4 tablespoons of sriracha. 4 tablespoons of sriracha will result in a medium spice level. If you're looking for a spicier short rib, go ahead and double the sriracha. Once all your ingredients are combined, whisk that together and our braising liquid is complete. Next, let's prepare our short ribs. We're going to keep it simple as far as seasoning goes because our braising liquid is going to be the main flavor factor after we reduce it. Evenly sprinkle a generous amount of kosher salt and cracked black pepper onto each of your short ribs. Make sure to season all 4 sides and the tops and bottoms. After that, we're going to need 2 to 3 stalks of green onion, 4 cloves of garlic, and another knob of ginger. Roughly chop your green onion into 3-inch pieces, peel and crush all 4 cloves of garlic, and peel and slice your ginger into 1 centimeter coins. We're going to spread all 3 of these aromatics into the bottom of our baking dish. I'm using a glass casserole dish, but if you have a Dutch oven, that's going to work much better for braising. Since some chefs might not have a Dutch oven at home, I'm going to show you that this works just as well with the normal casserole dish. Once we've covered the bottom of our pan with aromatics, place your short ribs bone side down into the baking dish, making sure that your short ribs sit on top of the garlic, ginger, and green onion. After that, take the braising liquid and slowly pour the liquid into the pan, being careful as to not pour the braising liquid directly on top of the short ribs. We're pouring the liquid on the side of our pan so we don't remove any of the seasoning on our short ribs. The last step before this goes into the oven is to place some heavy-duty aluminum foil on top of our short ribs. We want to make sure we have a tight wrap around the pan, leaving no holes or gaps. The tighter the wrap, the better insulated our short ribs will be, and the easier it will be to get fall apart short ribs. And finally, we're placing our short ribs in a 325 degrees Fahrenheit oven for 3.5 to 4 hours. The braising time will vary depending on this next step, which is the key to tender short ribs. At the 3.5 hour mark, we're going to pull our short ribs out of the oven and get a temperature check. We want to ensure that our short ribs have an internal temp of at least 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Getting to this temperature means that our short ribs have been cooking at the proper temp for the collagen inside of the beef to break down. This is the same principle that barbecue pitmasters use to ensure that their briskets are going to be melt in your mouth tender. Of course, if you don't have a meat thermometer, you can also just pull apart one of your short ribs and see if it's fall off the bone. As you can see, we are on the right track. The next step in the process is to reduce our braising liquid into a sweet and sticky sauce that will glaze our short ribs. So while we're doing that, our short ribs are going to rest on a wire rack. Get your widest saucepan or skillet and place a strainer on top. We're going to carefully pour the remaining liquid from the baking dish into our pan. The strainer is going to catch the garlic, ginger, and any other large food bits that didn't cook down during the braising process. Once all of our braising liquid has been transferred to our saucepan, we're going to place this in the freezer for about 1 hour to get the fat to accumulate on top and become solid so we can scoop it out. This step serves 2 purposes. 1, we want to remove the loose bits of protein and fat that will leave a grainy texture in our sauce. And 2, the amount of fat in our reduced sauce will leave an unpleasant greasy mouthfeel. With that being said, fat does equal flavor, so we don't want to remove all of the fat. After the fat has been removed, place your pan on the stovetop and turn it to high. We're going to reduce this down for about 10 to 15 minutes or until our beef stock becomes a beef sauce. Once your sauce coats the back of a spoon like this, that's when you'll know you're done. Now that our sauce is ready to go, it's time to bring our short ribs back into the picture. Our short ribs have been sitting on a wire rack that's on top of a sheet pan. This is because we're going to brush our sauce on top of our short ribs. Turn your oven onto a broil and slide your short ribs under the broiling oven for about 3 to 5 minutes. This will heat your short ribs back up and also give it a flavorful crust. After the initial broil, take your short ribs out and brush a thick layer of sweet and spicy sauce all over them. Don't forget the sides during this step. After our short ribs have been fully covered with sauce, we're placing them back under the broiler for about 30 seconds to reduce the sauce to its final sticky consistency. After 30 seconds, take your short ribs out and brush one more layer of sauce on top. And once again, we're going to place our short ribs back under the broiler for about 30 more seconds. While our short ribs are broiling, if you've stuck around this far, I just want to say thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate everyone's kind words on my recipe videos. If you want to support the channel further, why not like, comment, and subscribe to the channel? Again, I really appreciate it. After the second broil, let's take a look at our final results. We have a sticky, tender short rib that would definitely be fork tender. There's no knives needed here. We have a sweet and spicy glaze on top that is packed full of beef flavor and Asian-inspired ingredients. Just look at these glistening short ribs. I mean, the fat is literally melting on my gloves right now. As far as garnishment, I would recommend a wedge of lime to brighten up the short ribs and to cut through some of that fatty beef. In my opinion, this recipe would go perfect with rice and some pickled vegetables. We have a nice starch that can soak up that extra juice from our short ribs, and the pickled vegetables will help cut through that fatty beef. Just look how tender this is. Look at this. I'm picking this up with just chopsticks. Fatty, sweet, and spicy. Look at that. You can see the oil glistening on this. This is juicy. These short ribs have the perfect level of spiciness and sweetness. And not only that, but the braising process has made these short ribs so tender, you could pick it up with some chopsticks. But don't take my word for it. If you end up making this recipe for yourself, please go ahead and drop a comment down below and let us know how it went for you and what you think. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed cooking and eating it. Until my next video, I will see you all next time.